If Dominic Toretto were a criminal in the galaxy, he would look like this. This time, however, his name is Richard B. Riddick, and in this video I'll summarize for you a science fiction movie titled Pitch Black. Watch until the end and enjoy. The spaceship Hunter-Gratzner is traveling through space with 40 people on board in cryogenic stasis, except for the criminal Richard B. Riddick, who is awake. Suddenly, a collision with debris occurs, waking up the crew and killing the captain. The ship is forced to enter the planet's atmosphere. The pilot, Carolyn Fry, tries to control the descent, but the communication antenna is damaged. The ship starts spinning and descends upside down, so Fry wants to jettison the rear section of the ship where the other passengers are. Greg Owens blocks the attempt to eject the passenger cabin and instructs Fry to level the ship before landing, while the rest of the passengers wake up. The overloaded air brakes fail, shattering the front windshield, and the ship crash lands on the planet. The impact shatters the main cabin and scatters items outside. After the crash, the enforcement officer William J. Johns, who is escorting Riddick back to prison, notices the criminal's disappearance. He searches the wreckage when he is attacked by Riddick, but ultimately manages to subdue him. While searching for survivors, Fry finds a boy named Jack, who had hidden on board, and discovers Owens impaled by a metal beam. She looks for painkillers in the back, but the rear section of the cabin had detached during the crash. Faced with Owens' excruciating pain, Fry instructs everyone to leave the ship, and she stays with him as he dies, while Riddick remains tied to the ship. Among the remaining survivors are the Muslim imam and 3 young Muslim boys, Ali, Hassan, and Suleiman. Additionally, there is the antique dealer Paris P. Ogilvy and the settlers John Zeke Ezekiel and his partner Sharon Shaza Montgomery. The survivors exit the wreckage of the ship and look around to see that they are on a barren planet that looks like an illuminated desert. The compass needle constantly fluctuates, lacking any sense of direction. When the passengers ask Fry what happened, she responds that she is not sure, suggesting that the ship crash could have been caused by a meteor shower or a stray comet. The survivors thank Fry for saving their lives, unaware that she had attempted to jettison the part of the ship they were in during landing. Meanwhile, Fry learns that Riddick has escaped from a maximum security prison. In the cargo hold, Paris finds his bottles of luxury wine, which becomes their only drink. The Imam offers hope, saying, "All deserts have water." At the same time, Riddick manages to free himself and escapes. When Johns finds part of his shackles in the desert, the survivors prepare weapons to find Riddick, as Johns tells them that Riddick could return at any moment and kill them. Outside the shipwreck, Zeke and Shaza construct a makeshift breathing apparatus to increase oxygen intake if needed. Fry suggests setting out to find water before nightfall, and after a while, they see 3 suns on the horizon, realizing that night will not come. Johns orders Shaza, Paris, Jack, and Zek to guard the shipwreck, while warning them of the potential threat from Riddick. The rest of the group sets out to find water and the fugitive. John spots trees through binoculars, suggesting the presence of water. When they arrive, instead of trees, they see a massive bone graveyard and wonder what could have killed such large creatures. While resting outside the skeleton, Carolyn confesses to Johns that she wanted to jettison the passenger cabin during the crash, but was stopped by Greg. Unaware of Riddick's presence, Carolyn and Johns continue their conversation, during which Riddick eavesdrops on them, hidden in the darkness with a knife in hand. As the conversation ends, Riddick carefully snips a lock of Carolyn's hair. After some time, the group of survivors discovers an abandoned human settlement. The interior of the settlement is filled with items related to water. Carolyn decides to turn on the light as she enters a dark room and discovers a model of the planets. When she opens the window, sunlight shines on the model, leading Fry to reflect on the fact that it is never dark on this planet. Exiting the room is a moment of joy for her as she spots another spacecraft in the distance. Meanwhile, Paris, Shaza, and Jack hear noise coming from the wreckage of the ship. They prepare for an attack when they notice a shadow moving beside the ship. Shaza, in her attack, discovers another surviving man, but at the same moment, Zeke, thinking it's Riddick, kills the man from a distance, while Fry checks the ship and confirms that there is no fuel. Next, Zeke buries the body of the man he killed in a hole he had dug earlier for the dead passengers of the ship. As he enters inside, he notices another small hole that he did not dig, and when he looks into it, something suddenly pulls him in. Zeke fires his gun and starts screaming. Sheem immediately runs to him, and upon reaching the hole, he sees blood everywhere and she sees Riddick. Riddick quickly escapes, but Johns waits for him, ambushes him, takes off his goggles that protect his eyes from sunlight, and strikes him. Later, when Riddick is captured, Fry approaches him to find out where Zeke's body is hidden, but he responds that he should not be their concern. Carolyn wants to see his eyes and moves closer. When Jack asks him where he got such eyes, Riddick explains that he ended up in a prison where there is never daylight, and then he paid a doctor to surgically enhance his eyes so he could see in the dark. Riddick adds that he did not kill Zeke and instructs Fry to search deeper in the hole for his body. Carolyn enters the hole, attached to a rope. As she reaches the end, she enters a cave with openings at the top, and some creatures silently move around the cave. After a moment, she finds Zeke's foot when suddenly she hears strange noises and spots the creatures. She decides to escape and climbs through the cave opening, but her rope gets stuck on something, preventing her from climbing further. Fry starts screaming, and Jack, upon hearing this, calls the others, and they finally manage to pull her out. Fry tells the rest that some creatures live on this planet, and that they are the ones who killed Zeke. Then Johns releases Riddick on the condition that he will follow his orders and help them escape the planet. Riddick takes his weapon, but ultimately does not kill him. The group packs some items in an accumulator from the wrecked ship to test the spaceship and heads towards the settlement. They manage to start the ship, but Fry notes that they need to transfer an additional 4 accumulators from the old ship, which is problematic as one accumulator weighs 35 kilograms. Meanwhile, the group succeeds in refreshing water from the moisture recovery machine, and Ali enters the coring room. The group notices Jack's similar attire to Riddick's and wonders why the geologists left the site. However, Riddick states that the geologists faced the same fate as Zeke because their belongings were left behind. Suddenly, the roof of the coring room opens, and the light entering inside causes bird-like creatures to fly out, attacking Ali. The boy hides in another room when he suddenly notices something behind him. Upon hearing Ali's scream, the group enters the coring room, and as Imam tries to open the door to the next room, creatures fly out from there and into the shaft where Imam finds Ali's body. Next, the group throws flares into the shaft and discovers a mass of human bones. Riddick suggests that the geologists likely hid here from the creatures but forgot to close the door. Johns adds that the creatures like darkness, so as long as they are in daylight, they are safe. Fry notices markings suggesting that the cores are from 22 years ago and returns to the planet model, adjusting the year settings. They realize that every 22 years, a total eclipse occurs because all 3 planets and suns align, causing the middle planet to be plunged into complete darkness. Additionally, the 3 planets then move as one for a certain period, so the eclipse should last for an extended period of days or months. The group hurries with the plan to bring the accumulators from the shipwreck to the spaceship, repair the wings, and take off from the planet. Johns tells Carolyn that Riddick escaped last time by flying a ship and killing a pilot, so he suggests transferring the accumulators to the spaceship at the last moment when the ship is ready so that Riddick cannot steal it. When Fry is alone in the ship, Riddick appears and reveals to her that Johns is a bounty hunter, and Johns didn't kill him earlier because he will get a bigger reward for delivering him alive. Fry says that it won't come between them anyway, to which Riddick responds by telling her to pay attention to why Johns often trembles. Next, Fry confronts Johns, and he admits that he is not a policeman. She finds him injecting morphine into his eye and hoarding a supply of it. She is angry that he didn't give morphine when Owens was dying in agony. At that moment, the group sees the eclipse starting and rushes in a solar-powered rover to the shipwreck for the remaining accumulators. They retrieve the accumulators from the shipwreck and load them onto the rover, but as they try to leave, darkness falls on the planet. They witness a massive amount of creatures starting to emerge from a cave. The group starts running towards the cargo hold of the ship, but Shaza and Riddick fall behind and have to lie on the ground as a wave of flying creatures passes over them. Shaza panics and tries to escape but is quickly torn to pieces. Riddick survives, staying on the ground until the flock flies away. As Riddick reaches the cargo hold, he sees more and more terrifying creatures in the distance. While exploring the now prison-like interior of the cargo hold, alien sounds and their blades pierce the wall, pushing them deeper inside. As the group cuts through the walls looking for a better spot, Riddick encounters a creature that eats something. Hassan accidentally encounters the same creature, and Riddick tells him to stay put. When Hassan spots another creature, he panics and starts running, leading to his death. Riddick runs towards the rest of the group who shine the light in his direction, blinding him, and the light also hits the creature chasing him. The creature recoils, and Johns shoots it. As they approach the body, they see its skin burning upon contact with light. The group then devises a plan to get to the ship and bring the accumulators there without using the rover. Imam reminds them that the planets on the model moved as one during the eclipse, so the darkness will persist. They believe they just need light and plan to transport all the accumulators on foot, using light as protection against the creatures, with Riddick leading them in the darkness to the ship. They move to the main cabin of the shipwreck, prepare sleds with 4 accumulators, and take as much light as possible. Riddick tells the rest to check their wounds as the creatures know the taste of their blood. The group eventually sets out, with Riddick leading them at the front, constantly being watched by the creatures. Paris suddenly drops her flashlight, and Jack detaches from the rest to pick it up, leading to a creature attack. Imam saves Jack at the last moment. Paris panics and flees, causing the entire flashlight system to be destroyed, and the light stops burning. Paris is attacked, and as he takes a final sip of wine and spits it onto a lighter, he sees a horde of creatures surrounding him. They continue the march with torches and other lights, only to discover that they have crossed their own tracks, and angrily ask where Riddick is leading them in the darkness. Riddick explains that he made an extra loop because he needed time to think, as there is a canyon ahead, and additionally, the girl is bleeding. Riddick clarifies that Jack is actually a girl and she is the one bleeding. Fry suggests returning to the shipwreck, which annoys Johns, who reveals to the rest that when they crashed, Fry wanted to blow up the passenger cabin, but Owen stopped her. As they continue their way to the settlement, Johns leaves the group and approaches Riddick, telling him that they won't all survive, and proposes that Riddick kill Jack to use her body as bait for the aliens. However, Riddick suggests they will need a bigger bait and attacks Johns. Johns overpowers Riddick and is close to killing him, but Riddick turns the tables at the last moment and cuts Johns' back with a knife. When the light goes out, Riddick disappears into the darkness. Johns tries to locate him, but his wounds attract the creatures. He is suddenly attacked and ultimately eaten by a creature. Riddick rejoins the group, who run back to the shipwreck. He informs them of John's death and suggests not to turn back. They reach the canyon, and Riddick takes the accumulators, dragging them behind him, while the rest keep Jack in the middle to prevent the creatures from sensing blood. Suddenly, flying creatures appear in front of them, but they do not attack due to the light, and Fry notices that the creatures are killing each other. When they reach a giant skeleton that they have to pass through, Suleiman gets caught by a creature. The rest tries to help him and ignites the spirits that the boy dropped, which allows Suleiman to be freed. As they tend to his wound, Jack asks Riddick to wait, but she is attacked by another creature. Riddick hesitates to help, but ultimately kills the creature with a knife. They move on, when unexpectedly it starts to rain, which falls on their torches. They stop to take cover and maintain the fire when suddenly Suleiman is abducted and disappears behind a cliff. Riddick finds a crevice in the rock and instructs only Fry, Imam, and Jack to hide in it, then takes the accumulators and heads towards the settlement alone. Jack fears that Riddick will not return, and soon all their light goes out. Meanwhile, Riddick reaches the ship. As everyone loses hope, they see glowing snails on the walls and use them to fill bottles to create lamps, while Riddick starts the ship. He prepares for takeoff when suddenly he sees Carolyn. The woman tells him that she promised Imam and Jack to come back for them and asks him to go with her. However, Riddick suggests that she board the ship and fly with him, otherwise he will leave her. As she boards the ship, she remembers how she once wanted to leave them and throws herself at him, saying she will not leave them and would die for them. After a while, Fry returns with Riddick to the crevice for Jack and Imam. They then run towards the ship when they encounter creatures on their way. They hold hands and run towards the creatures, warding them off with light. Riddick sends the others ahead, staying behind to absorb the attack. The rest reach the ship, and as Riddick is close, a creature stands in his way. He manages to stay in the creature's blind spot when suddenly another creature appears from behind. Carolyn returns for Riddick, hearing his screams, and finds him injured. Fry helps him stand and walk towards the ship when suddenly Fry is grabbed and abducted by a creature, which Riddick cannot believe. Then Riddick is already on the ship and starts it up, but shortly after he turns off the engine, waiting for the creatures to approach the ship. As the creatures surround the ship, Jack is terrified, and Riddick starts the engine and takes off, killing the alien beings with the light and power of the engines. Once they are in space, Jack asks Riddick what they should tell the authorities about him when they are interrogated, and he tells her to say that Riddick is dead and that he died somewhere on the planet.